When it comes to building or growing a successful business, there's one key ingredient that every CEO must have, and that's strategy. You're going to have to make goals, a step-by-step process that helps you scale and accomplish success. What if I told you that I have 7 strategies that I've compiled to help you scale big? However, the business that I am going to help you with is going to be the main business, which is for those who make it their business to be about God's business. That's right. These are the ultimate strategies that lead to closeness to Hashem. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Nissim Black Show. This is going to be episode 4 for us, but this is going to be an episode unlike the other episodes because I'm going to do something a little bit different. Now, a lot of people enjoy analogies. I'm the type of person where I really don't like analogies, but I'm going to explain this to you in a way of scaling up a business. So what am I going to explain? Closest to Hashem. I mean, that's the main business. I think if you would ask anybody who's at least serious, any spiritual person, any religious person of any sort, they're going to tell you that they understand that the main purpose and reason for them being here in this world is for no other reason than closeness to Hashem, to be close to God, to know God, to fear God, to live with Him, and to live a life in a communion with Him in a certain way where there's a special relationship that takes precedence over every single thing else in our life. But it's a very, very important thing, but oftentimes it's really neglected by most of us. So it's a beautiful story I heard many years ago. I was inside of the synagogue, this Beit Knesset. I don't know how to say sometimes. I want to say everything over in English as much as I possibly can. But I remember being there one Saturday morning, and a guy said over to me a story. He said that there was a man who was walking on the beach, and he encountered another man that had a massive container sitting right in front of him on the beach. And he said to him, he had these piles over there. He had one pile of these massive boulders, rocks, and stones. And then he had another pile of these pebbles. And then next to that, he had a pile of sand, which is easier to come by because of sand. But he made a separate pile. And so he sees the man who's encountered him there on the beaches. He has this container there. And he asked the man, he says, "Do you think that all 3 of these piles can fit inside of this container?" And the man says, he looked at it. After looking at it, he says, "Yeah, I think they can fit." So what does he do? He goes and he takes the sand and he puts the sand inside. And then after filling it up with the sand, he takes the pebbles and he tries to put the pebbles in there. And by the time he gets to the big boulders, the bigger rocks, the stones, he sees that it can't fit. So he's moving and shaking it and maneuvering it. And all of a sudden, after a while, he looks at the man and he says, "Listen, you tried to pull a fast one on me. So it looks like everything doesn't fit inside of this container." So the man says, "Are you sure about that?" He says, "Yeah, I'm sure. I just tried it." He says, "Let's take everything out." So he takes everything out and puts it in its respective piles. And then the man who owned the container took first the very big boulders and he put it inside of the box. Then he goes and he takes the pebbles and he puts it inside of the box. Then he takes the sand and then he puts that inside of the box. And as he pours it, the sand goes through all the little nooks and crannies of the box. And all of a sudden he sees that everything fits inside the box. So what's the point of the story? What's the moral of the story? What's the nimshal, as we would say? The story is that if you keep the main things, then you'll have time and space for everything else. Meaning that if, just like I just said, if our relationship with Hashem is the most important thing in our life, then once we put that in order, and once we put everything that's associated with that in order and all the different items, some of the strategies that I'm going to lay out for you today, if we could keep that in order, then everything else would fit. All the recreational things, all the things with our career, all the things that we aspire to do in this world will fit as long as we keep the main things the main things. Now, you can apply this not only to your relationship with God, we can apply it to our marriage and spending time with our children. As I've heard it said many times, nobody on the deathbed ever said, as they're facing death in the eye, ever said that, "I wish I would have spent more hours at the office. I wish I would have spent more time with the buddies." You know, most people would say that they wish they would have did things differently in respects with the relationship they had with Hashem and the relationship they had with their loved ones and their dear ones. So So what I want to do today is give you over the 7 strategies of closest to Hashem, but I'm going to explain them to you not in layman's terms. I'm going to give them over to you in business terms, because when I say that serving Hashem and making that your business, it's the main business. So we need to talk about this as if it's a business. So I'm going to give you a few different strategies here. I'm going to give you 7, and I think I'm actually going to give you a bonus one also to go along with these 7. So number 1 is that any CEO knows this, any owner knows this, that you have to know and study your business. You have to know and study your business. You have to know what it is. You have to, just like any CEO, they're going to study their industry. They're going to look for the market trends and internal data. And the same way that you do that, you need to study Torah. So this is the first one, Torah study. Learning Hashem's word, being connected with Hashem's word. You need to know it in order to understand how God operates the world. How is Hashem operating in your world? A person, Rabbi Nachman actually says that a person will see divine providence in their life. And not only that, they will see Hashem speaking to them if they would read the Torah according to the daily Torah portions that we read every single week. There's a separate Torah portion associated with the 5 books of Moses for each section over there. And that if a person does this due diligence to read through that, they'll be able to see Hashem speaking to them in that week's parsha, as they are spending that time, and they'll be able to see Hashem inside their life. So if a person spends their time with Torah study, then they will understand not only the way that Hashem is moving things in the world, not only will they have a clarity of understanding, but they're going to have a clarity of understanding even for themselves. Not only that, it says in the book of Joshua here, I had written down over here. So it says in the book of Joshua, it says that the book, it says in chapter 1, verse 8, it says the book of this Torah should not depart from your mouth. So a person has to be constantly speaking words of Torah, being engaged and making Torah such a part of their life that they can't live without it, that it becomes a part of them. And just like any CEO that runs any company, nobody's going to slack off and not know the industry. I heard one time by a very successful person, he says that I don't have time for anything. He says, I'm so busy in my off time studying my craft, studying what it is that I need for my business to grow and scale my business, to see what people are doing inside the market. I don't have time for recreational things. Now, if a person understands this, if a person is going to be this way about business, then how much more so should such a thing apply to our relationship with Hashem and strengthening that relationship? So the first key ingredient and strategy that a person has in order to come close to Hashem is learning Torah. And it's very important to strategize this and to make this a part of strategy. Rabbi Nachman talks about this. He says that there's many people who strategize all the time to get money, Ponzi schemes, all type of pyramid businesses people come up with all the time, get rich quick schemes or whatever the case is. And when it comes to God, there's absolutely no strategy. A person every single day is fighting some type of opposition that's trying to stop you from achieving your spiritual goals. But you don't realize the amount of strategy and the amount of movements that you're going to have to make to maneuver around those things and in order for you to get to the place that you want to be to. So Joshua 1:8 says that the book of the Torah should not depart from your mouth. So the business takeaway is that the most successful entrepreneurs, they master their field. You have to master your field. The field of coming close to Hashem, master your field is by learning it and knowing what it is that Hashem wants from you, and that you're going to find through Torah. So the most spiritual connected people, they master the Torah. This is what they do. Okay, number 2, one of my personal favorites, but it's very, very important that it comes in this order. And that is speak and vocalize your vision. Any business owner understands that they're going to have to speak out their goals. If you want to accomplish something, you have to talk it out. That is going to correlate with the spiritual principle of hitbodedut, which means personal prayer or personal seclusion, you and God spending that time with him. And it's one thing if a person, you've learned a bunch of information. Say we go with the first thing we talked about. You learned a bunch of information. So now you need to figure out how to get it from here down to here. And speaking it out and talking these things out, not only is it going to strengthen your connection and your relationship with Hashem, but you are going to be able to actually have the wherewithal. You're going to give yourself the chizuk, the strength that you need to be able to accomplish what it is that you actually want to accomplish by speaking it out. So personal prayer and talking to Hashem does wonders, not only for our connection, our relationship with Hashem, but our relationship with ourselves, to be able to say what it is that we are aspiring to achieve, or the things that we want to acquire, whether they're character traits, whether it's monetary things, whether it's emotional things, and for our emotional well-being, whatever it is, speaking these things out is so important. We understand this when it comes to speaking to other people. People pay tons of money to go sit on somebody's couch and to explain everything to them that's going on in their life, and the intricacies of their life, and all the difficulties and all the different challenges that they have in their life, that they will go and sit on somebody's couch, who then, because they just unloaded on this person, that person now has to go sit on somebody else's couch. And then you have a cyclical cycle of, everybody needing another couch to sit on to go talk to someone else. And Hashem is saying that I'm here. You could come talk to me for free. Now, I'm not trying to put anybody out of business, so to speak. I'm just saying that once a person realizes the importance of speaking these things out and talking them out, that will bring emotional health. It could bring material health. It could bring a person ultimately closer to Hashem, which is what we want. So entrepreneurs must constantly articulate their mission. So whether to investors, you're going to have to speak it over, whether to the employees, you're going to have to let them and give them direction on which way you want them to go, or to customers. Customer service is an important part. So speaking is a part of it, whether it's for a person's personal goals, or whether it is for, to maneuver inside the company. So the same goes for our faith. The same thing goes with you speaking to Hashem, expressing your dreams, your struggles, your aspirations. So we see by King David, he says very much so in Tehillim 55:17, all of his prayers is what's building his relationship with him and Hashem. This is the way to get close to Hashem, is to constantly be speaking these things out. This is the way to achieve things, is by constantly speaking these things out. Prayer has to be a focal point of your life. And although, like I said, number one comes first, because, if a person prays without the proper Torah study, without knowing what it is that Hashem actually wants from you, then it's going to be very, very hard to play, not only with fluidity, it's going to be very, very hard to know what it is to pray about. A lot of people say to me, when I talk to them about prayers, like, wow, I really don't know how to pray. I don't really know what to say. I don't really, and my response to it is, have you ever opened up the Torah? Have you ever seen Hashem's word? Have you ever seen what his expectations were? If you could see that in your own life, you're not even accomplishing all of his expectations. Let's leave your expectations on the side, but let's talk about God's expectations. Are you meeting it? Okay, yes or no? Most people answers no, right? I'm not meeting all my obligations to God, right? Whatever that may be, whether it's spiritual obligations or actual law mandated from the Torah that you must do this. So if you see you're not accomplishing it, so why not open your mouth and say, Hashem, I know you want this from me, but I'm stuck. Right now, I'm not feeling the inspiration. Right now, I don't feel like I can conquer certain things that seem to be holding me back in my relationship with you. Like, why couldn't a person look at what you've learned and then turn those into prayers? One of the things that we spoke about on the last podcast was turning your Torah into your prayer. So it's very, very important, in order for your prayer to have favor before God, is that you've learned first what it is, what the expectations is, and not only learning how to want, but what to want, and then turning those things into your prayers. Speaking out like any good business person would do. And if you don't verbalize your company's goals, then they remain just ideas. And the same way, if you don't verbalize your connection with Hashem, then it just stays undeveloped. It just is what it is. The more and more a person speaks to Hashem, the more and more you're going to believe in him. The stronger your faith is going to be. The stronger your trust is going to be. The more tranquil your life is going to be, because you've started. Any good relationship that a person has with anyone, it begins with communication. Every breakdown of a relationship that you may have with another person is because of a lack of communication. That's generally what destroys relationships. So number 3 is daily profit and loss analysis. And this will correlate to the spiritual principle of gratitude. Now, I said loss, and I'm also talking about profit. What I want to focus on over here is the profit. we have such an idea of self-introspection, cheshbon nefesh, what we would say in Hebrew, and a lot of people get very hung up on looking at the losses. How many things I didn't do right? How many things I failed at? How many things that didn't go correct? Now, the another thing, the other flip side of that is the profit that most people don't look at, especially when it comes to spirituality. How much time is a person spending saying, I did this right? Thank you, Hashem. I was able to do that. I was able to accomplish this. Thank you, Hashem, that you put this in my life. Thank you, Hashem, that you did this. We don't understand the importance of being grateful to Hashem and having gratitude and living with gratitude in our lives. That is going to bring us so close to Hashem. So a person has to understand that don't only look at the losses, look at the profits. Look what you were able to accomplish. And from there, you'll know how to continue to scale up. From there, you'll be able to see the things that you did right, which is not all our own power. We don't believe in the power of our own right hand. We know that if we've accomplished something, that it came from Hashem. Hashem helped us already to accomplish so much. So this is the gratitude that a person has to have. So just as any company tracks their wins and their losses to improve, you must track and recognize God's blessings in your life. You have to be looking for where it is that Hashem has already blessed you in your life. And don't let go of it. Hang on to it. Gratitude is your spiritual profit that fuels the growth. You're going to continue to grow because God is going to keep giving to a person who is grateful. If you're grateful, not only for the things that you've already been able to accomplish, which is really the help of Hashem, then when a person takes a step further and looks at all the different blessings and everything else that's happened inside of their life and able to thank Hashem for it, Hashem gets going to keep giving over and over and over again. So we have specifically already this week, which we just read yesterday. I mean, obviously I tried to record the podcast here in a way that anybody could listen, but this particular week, we specifically read in the Torah portion about not only the splitting of the Red Sea, but we also read about the manna that fell down from heaven, that God provided for the Jewish people, for Bnei Yisrael, when they were traveling from Egypt, provided them with bread that fell down from the heaven, that God took care of them. God was with them. And the gratitude, and over and over and over again, in many different books, and a lot of commentators talk about the fact that the Jewish people over and over again constantly found themselves in this place where the punishments that were meted out to them along their time in the desert was the lack of gratitude. It was just not being grateful for the things that were actually happening for them. And the Israelites, they had to trust and they had to be grateful for every single thing that they did, for their daily sustenance. And we've seen that take its place with the manna, with the quail that fell down, that God is going to do more and more for a person who is grateful. This is a big way to scale up that business of coming close to Hashem. Business takeaway from this is that businesses, they thrive when they acknowledge and build on their success. So a soul thrives in the same way when it recognizes and appreciates what Hashem has done for him. This is it. So moving on to number 4. Number 4 is a massive one. And it goes along with what we've said before. But number 4 is taking risk and trusting the market. So this is trusting God, bitachon. So the Hebrew way of saying it is bitachon, being batach Hashem, trusting in Hashem and relying on Hashem. So no business scales without risk. Launching new products, investing in growth, and making bold decisions. Likewise, deepening your emunah, your faith in Hashem, and your connection with Hashem requires stepping into the unknown. Trusting Hashem has your back. This is complete and total reliance on Hashem. Not looking for things to come from a different place, not trusting in other people, not trusting in man, not fearing man, but truthfully trusting in Hashem. Trusting that he's going to be there for you, that he is going to guide you, he is going to bail you out if you find yourself backed into the corner. The trust is so important for our connection and our relationship with Hashem. It is the one thing that can build us up unlike anything else, with total reliance. We have even some of the most beautiful, beautiful books on ethics in the Jewish faith that talk about specifically a person trusting in Hashem, not only when you're doing the right thing, that even when you don't feel that you are worthy of God's salvation and you don't feel that you are worthy of Hashem helping you, but if you trust in Him, that you have 1,000% chance that God is going to help you out and bail you out. It all depends on your trust. Trust, which is one faith of faith. That's on one side of the coin of faith. You have trust, and then you also have faith. These two work in tandem together. Because first you have the emunah, I have the faith, I have the belief. But how do I act out that faith? I act out that faith by trusting, knowing that Hashem is going to be there with me. So we see that Abraham Avinu, his faith was all bound up with God, and he was tested 10 times according to our tradition. But we know that there was a major test of Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac upon the altar, and thank God he didn't do it. But right before he does it, we see that the angel yells out from heaven and says that Abraham, now I see that you believe in me. Now I see that you are ish emunah. You're a man of faith. You're a person who has faith. And by faith, and it wasn't enough that Abraham practiced his faith. He acted it out with trusting in God, that even though this doesn't make sense, even though this doesn't appear to be, the way that God was going to bring it about, nevertheless, I'm going to trust him. Number 5. You have to reinvest your profits. This will correlate to tzedakah and charity and giving. Being a person that gives. This is something that draws us closer to Hashem, and it draws us closer to God because we are being like him. God does a charity with every single one of us, right? In order for us to have some existence, and I don't want to go as deep as this could go into esoteric ideas, but in order for us to have an existence, to live and to give, God is constantly giving to every single one of us every single day. He is giving us the very breath that we breathe. He is giving us a heartbeat. He's giving us, another chance even to make things right with him. Hashem is giving us every single thing that we have going on throughout the day. A person really is in the world naked. You don't own anything. You don't have anything. It appears that we own things. It appears that we're doing things, but everything that we have in our life is none other than the loving kindness of God himself. And what God asks in return is that we do the same thing, that we pay it forward in the same way that he does for us, that we do for other people. Tzedakah, giving charity, giving to other people, whether it's financially. It doesn't always have to be financially. Some people don't have the means to always give financially, but they can give of their time. They can give of their ear. They can give of themselves, volunteer somewhere. But these things are something that will ultimately draw you closer to Hashem. Why? Because you're being more like him. You're being more like what your ultimate purpose is to be a Tselem Elohim, to be in the image of God. And the more and more that we are emulating God, the more and more we are going back to our original image and in our way of replicating the way that God is and the way that he behaves in this world. And so giving is a major part of that. So businesses that grow reinvest in their people, they reinvest in their communities. And faith, giving, is reinvesting in your soul and others and multiplying your blessings. So as we've seen, Ruth and Boaz, if anybody has seen, read inside the book of Ruth, you see that Boaz was a man of means and he was giving. And his charity that he was giving to Ruth and to Naomi in turn became the biggest blessing for him. Not only did he acquire Ruth, who was a Moabitess, who was a very, very beautiful young lady, not only did he acquire her as his wife, he acquired the ability to be in the lineage of the coming Messiah. Boaz is, in his giving and his chesed and his kindness of what he was doing for Ruth, in turn became the biggest blessing to him. Not only financially, not only did he gain a wife at the time, he gained that he would ultimately be in the lineage of the Messiah, the Redeemer of the whole entire world. All on the account of the fact that he was giving, all on the fact that he was mirroring the way that God is with us. This is exactly what he did. Hey guys, what's going on? I want to tell you really quickly about an organization here in Ramat Beit Shemesh named Kol Koreh. Kol Koreh is an organization that provides essential support to kids with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. They do everything from making sure that they have personalized lesson plans all the way to advocacy, which is very important. A lot of these kids are falling through the cracks in the regular system, and a lot of them are misdiagnosed. But Kol Koreh, through their assessment, has found that most of the time it's just learning disabilities. Unfortunately, because of the war, people have reallocated their funds to different war efforts and misplaced families, rightfully so. But unfortunately, what it's led to is a lot of these kids falling through the cracks. And now this wonderful organization is at the brink of turning kids away. I would never advocate for something unless I was able to personally tell you how amazing the organization is. I want everybody that can, please go to kolkoreh.org and make a donation. We must keep this organization open and running and being able to service all the families that they service. For a long time, when it comes to organizations, many people have asked me, but unless I know personally that I'm dealing with real people, I would never ask my audience. So again, please make a donation today to Kol Koreh, that's KOLKOREH.org. And I can honestly say that you will be changing lives. Okay, back to the show. So the business takeaway from this, for our business, is that just as companies thrive when they reinvest in their success, your spiritual life, it will thrive when you give back and when you give to other people. And it's so important. And not only that, we are told specifically from God to test him. Test him. Test him with our charity. He says, test me and see if I won't pour out for you a cup that's overflowing. So giving in itself is also an act of trust. We have to trust that by us giving, we are actually going to receive in return for the giving. And God is for sure not going to fall short of any of his promises that he promised to all of us. So we have to believe in God's kindness. Number 6, for any successful business, is going to be building the right team. This is going to correlate with spiritually surrounding yourself with the right people. So no CEO in any business will ever succeed alone. Surrounding yourself with the right mentors, you need the right partners, the right advisors, the right employees is going to be crucial and critical. Spiritually, surrounding yourself with uplifting people strengthens your connection to God. And not only uplifting people, upright people. We need to be around people that not are only, just, you know, they want to do the right things, which is great to be around people that want to do the right things. People have lofty goals and aspirations, but we need to, as much as we possibly can, find people that make it their business to be about God's business. And people that you know, people of strong faith, people of great integrity, people that are willing to, sacrifice themselves and have, to some degree carved out major things in their life in order for them to serve God properly, finding people that inspire us. If you want to go and be a part of any company, you want to make partners at a law firm, you want to, grow and be successful in any business, what anybody would do, they would go and try to find somebody or find people that know the business very well, people that are already successful, people that are already reached the mountaintop of whatever business that is. They go and they try to find someone that can mentor them and get them into the right place. After they get there, then they try to find the right advisors, people along the way. You never stop looking for people that's going to surround you and get you to that place. So why would it be any different when it comes to our connection with Hashem? If you know that you're in an environment, if you know that you're around people that constantly are pulling you down, constantly pulling you away from Hashem, constantly taking you away from your ultimate goal and your purpose, then ultimately you can't be around those people. It's only going to bring you down. And I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you because everybody, as they hear things, they hear advice, sometimes we get very excited, but you have to listen to me. Whoever you are, you have to listen and understand that if you continue to put yourself in an environment or put yourself around people that are not doing anything in life, they only tear you down whenever you try to bring up whatever your spiritual goals are, especially when it comes to spirituality. People that are toxic towards your spirituality, you have to let them go. You have to let them go. You have to reestablish yourself with Hashem, and you have to seek out people who live for Hashem, who are living for their connection with God. Without it, it's going to be impossible, just like it would be for any business person to be successful if they kept people around them that were only bringing down the business. You start up a business with people, but the only thing everybody else around you is worried about is making a quick dollar, and you're trying to grow and build this, mega company, something that's going to be successful. And then, guess what? Everybody else is not going to be on the same page when it's time to scale up, or when investments come in, or when a person has to, move the business in this direction or that direction. Nobody's going to be on the same page because everybody's busy with their own things. You need to be with people who are busy with Hashem's business. There's no doubt about it. And we see this by Joshua, who was the main student of Moses. He didn't want to leave his side. He didn't want to leave his side. Moses goes up 40 days and 40 nights. What do you see, Joshua? I'm sleeping at the bottom of the mountain until Moses comes down. I'm not leaving, because he knows in himself, if I'm going down there, I'm liable to partake of the a building of a golden calf. I'm liable to end up at parties with the with the with the people of Moab, or I forget who it was at the time. I think it was the Midianites. Yeah, the Midianites. I'm liable to do anything wrong if I'm not as close to Moses as I possibly can be. So he made it his business to be there. And Elisha, the same thing. He didn't want to leave his master, who was Elijah the prophet. You see, he wouldn't let him go from his side. It says in the biblical account of Kings that when Elijah was about to get called up from Hashem and to taken up into a chariot of fire, that Elisha didn't want to leave his side. He kept saying, go. He tried to do everything he could to leave him. He says, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to leave you. And this is the same way that we need to be with righteous people. This is the same way that we need to be with those who we surround ourselves with, and the people that we're around that know I'm not going to, because the danger of being in environments that are not good for me, and the toxicity of being around people that will only bring me down is complete and absolute poison. So our business takeaway is this: the people you work with determine your business success, period. And so the same thing, the people you surround yourself with will determine your spiritual success. Very, very simple. The people that you surround yourself with is going to determine your spiritual success. Can't say it better. Number 7 is going all in, sacrificing for the big vision. So we have the sacrifice that comes along with bitachon, with trust, but this is a different type of sacrifice. I'm talking about what we say in Hebrew, and this will correlate to the spiritual principle of self-sacrifice, which is mesirat nefesh, meaning that this is something nobody else can tell you. So big businesses demand big sacrifices. And a lot of times when these big sacrifices come from the businesses, it doesn't always come from the advisor. Sometimes there's something that happens in the gut. There's something that happens in a person's mind. They have a vision. You see something, and you know that you're going to have to make that leap, in order for the business to be successful, in order for you to at least see and to go and to move yourself in that inspiration, that shock of inspiration that you have at that time, in order for the business to actually go from being down here to being up here. And you know that you have that one thing, and you have this, maybe even a small amount of time to be able to make that decision. And you don't have time to talk to all the advisors, to go to other people. This is the self-sacrifice. This is correlating at least to self-sacrifice that a person is going to need in the relationship with Hashem. Because likewise, the spiritual connection requires self-sacrifice. It requires a person giving up what's comfortable for you. It requires you giving up yourself for something that's greater than you. And a lot of times, and we see this in Queen Esther, she risked her life for her people. She risked her life for the Jewish people. She put herself on the line. And that was a sacrifice she was willing to make, because she believed after her, her pep talk with Mordechai, she was able to see that, listen, I have to make some type of move, and everything right now is depending on me. The whole entire fate, as in her time of the Jewish people, is depending on me making this self-sacrifice, this mesirat nefesh, this, giving up my own comfort, giving up what's easy to me, giving up what I already know to go into something that's the unknown. Hey, sorry to stop you. I just want to remind you to make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so anytime a new podcast, any new content, anytime it drops on this channel, you are going to be informed and you're going to know. And also, on top of that, let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what you think of this podcast. Leave comments in the comment section and I will try my best to get back to you. But make sure that you stay up on everything new that happens on this channel. Okay, back to the show. So just as great companies require deep commitment, a strong connection to God, it requires the sacrificing of yourself, of your ego, and your comfort, and your control. And all of us have to overcome it. I remember one time I had to make a very, very important decision that would have affected not only me, but my family, and could have been for many years. And this has happened to me in many different facets in my life. But having to make that decision, I remember looking at the odds. Now, the thing that, we'll say was on the right, the thing that was less attractive from a common sense point of view, I would say, was over there. And I had to stare this thing and look at it in the face. And I had on the left over here something that was very much so the common sense way of handling what it was that I was going through. But I was at a loss because through all of the noise and the riffraff of everything of my self fighting with my inner self and what anybody else would tell me, and if I would have spoke to this person, but sometimes, like I said, when it comes to self-sacrifice, a lot of times you can't ask anybody. And no one else can demand it of you, and no one else can require this of it. There are certain points in our relationship with God. There's nobody to ask to. There's no spiritual figures. There's no spiritual guides. There's no rabbi. There's no one to talk to you. It's you and Hashem, and you have to be confronted with what it is that Hashem put in front of you, and you have to make a move. So I remember I was sitting at a dock, and I had these two things staring at me. On the right, not logical, completely illogical. But according to who I am and my purpose and everything that I am, this seems to make the most sense, for me, even spiritually, this would be good. Spiritually, that's another thing, litmus test, is that when you have to make a decision, what's going to be best for you spiritually? A lot of people make decisions and willing to sacrifice a lot of things for things that make the most sense financially, but they're not always looking at things with their best interest for the spirituality. So this spiritually was better for me. Didn't have all the rest of the bells and the whistles. This over here was not spiritually better for me. Actually was worse in a lot of ways. But, would have set me up okay, would have set the family okay. But I have these two things in front of me. What do I do? To do this is a major self-sacrifice. This is major Mesiras Nefesh. This is me really breaking myself. And it is going to force me to trust in God more. As opposed to where this, even though everything comes from God, it'd be very easy for me to forget that this is Hashem doing it. I will think that I'm doing it. So what I did was I took out my notebook and I started to write. And I wrote in that notebook every single time I made any type of sacrifice, any type of self-sacrifice for Hashem. When I believed that anytime I was ever facing these other type of situations that were very similar to this, I wrote down what the problem was, what I was facing, what sacrifice I ended up making for Hashem. But that wasn't it. After that, after all of those things, I wrote the result. And there was maybe 10 or 12 things I think I wrote down that were major things in my life that gave off the same feeling, I guess I would say, made me feel as if I was being put back in those same shoes. And I wrote the result, and I looked at every single time, Hashem caught me. Every time I jumped, every time I made that leap of faith, every time I was Moshe Nefesh, I was sacrificing myself for the sake of God. I wrote down the result every single time. God never failed me. He never failed me. And that gave me the strength to make that sacrifice. And because I made the sacrifice, it ultimately was better for me in every other single way. Because if I can focus on looking at what's going to better me spiritually, and I'm willing to sacrifice and make the big sacrifice for those things in my life, ultimately everything else that I want to accomplish is going to come. It's a natural thing. It's a byproduct of our faith and our emunah and our trusting in Hashem, that if I put him first, goes all the way back to the first story that we started off the podcast with, that if you keep the main things, if I could put in the big boulders first, and then put in the pebbles, the things that are less important, and then put in the sand, the things that are I'm going to ultimately be able to fit every single thing in. God will not withhold the blessing from a person if they put him first. And so our business takeaway from this is that just as great companies require deep commitment, a strong connection to God requires sacrificing ego and comfort and control. It's going to take you willing to be able to relinquish your control and your hold on something and to be able to follow after God, which goes along with trust, which also ultimately will be a major sacrifice for the person. Okay, so my bonus tip for all of you, my bonus strategy that is going to help you scale up big with Hashem and scale up big with your relationship with Hashem is the foundation. I call this one literally the foundation because although I'm giving it to you last, this is the foundation because it's the main thing that we're going to need to connect ourselves with Hashem. It's the main thing that a person, any business person, is going to need. And that is staying humble as you scale, which correlates to humility, anava in Hebrew. That a person makes it their business to be about Hashem's business, meaning that I'm going to minimize myself in order to increase the glory of God. So arrogance will kill any business. It kills businesses. I've seen a lot of people destroy themselves. I've seen a lot of athletes, world athletes who, even people that I've grown up with, that arrogance in itself destroys their career. And you see it over and over again. Anybody could tell. It's like a ticking time bomb. It's like a time bomb. Any person that knows anybody that's overly, impressed with themselves or thinks overly highly of themselves. We're not talking about a person that has self-confidence. Confidence and arrogance are two different things, but we're talking about an arrogant person. Any person knows that an arrogant person is a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before that person finds themselves in an unfortunate situation. It's literally only a matter of time. And anybody knows arrogance kills businesses. CEOs who stay humble attract loyalty. People will be loyal to that person, and they're going to have long-term success because they're humble. So spirituality, humility, it is the foundation of true greatness. Every single good character trait comes out from humility. Every single bad character trait comes out from arrogance. It's just the way that it works. Ultimately, if a person wants to achieve anything, you want to be a more loving, kind, patient husband. You want to be able to, a good CEO is the type of person that brings up the morale of every person that's around them, and they bring it up not by over talking them, not by downing them. They always say one of the best things, the best quality of a good CEO is empowering everybody else around them to make them feel as if the big idea was their idea. Every person should feel like they had contribution to the success of the company and to whatever it is that's being executed. They need to feel as if they were the person who contributed. And that's what a good CEO does. They're not looking all the time for their glory and for their kavod. In the same way in our spirituality, we can't do it. This is the foundation of every single good character trait is humility. So we see that Moses himself, who ran the biggest business of being the one of liberating the Jewish people from Mitzrayim, that he himself realized that it wasn't him that did anything. He never for a second thought that he was even worthy of the position that he took. And he was so humble that he was able to write about himself that Moses was the most humble person to ever live, to ever walk the face of the earth. So that shows you, first off, one thing: humility is not self-loathing in a depressing way or sadness or down-looking yourself or anything like that. Rabbi Nachman says the true humility is when you could say about yourself that I am humble and it not be coming from arrogance, right? So ultimately, Moses was humble. And because of that, look at the blessing that God gave him. Moses is the most mentioned person throughout all the entire Tanakh and the whole entire Hebrew Bible. You never heard it. No other name is mentioned as much as Moses. Following right behind him is King David. Which is why also too, I think, we call it the Torah of Moshe. And we look at prayer. Prayer is synonymous with King David. So that's 1 and 2 on our list. First thing is Torah. Have to know what to pray for. And then number 2 is praying about those things, putting it in action. There's a few different items like that: Torah, tefillah, Torah, and prayer. Those two things go together. Amuna, bitachon. These are two sides of the same coin. That without faith, the person won't trust. The person can't trust without the faith. Those two things go together. So Moses was the greatest leader throughout all of Jewish history. There was nobody greater than Moses. And he reached his greatness, his godless, and he was the biggest because he was the smallest. Because that's how he saw himself. He saw himself as the smallest one. So the takeaway from this one is that the best entrepreneurs and the most spiritually connected people know that success comes from something greater than themselves. They're never attributing the success to themselves. Oh, I did this. I was the one that had this. I did this. I did this. It wasn't you. It was Hashem. It was God. So just like any business can scale from small to global, your Emunah and Hashem, your connection with Hashem, your faith can scale from being something that's surface level to being something that's deeply transformative for you. And you can apply all of these 7 strategies and build a long-lasting connection with Hashem that will see you thriving. And not only will it help you, it will help every single person around you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you are implementing these tips. And if you are implementing them, please just shoot me some type of message. You're also welcome to email me. I want to be engaged. I want to know if what we're talking about here is actually helpful. I want to thank everybody who's been emailing me. The podcast, like I said, we're only underway. This is our 4th episode, and already I'm getting so many emails, so much feedback, even in the comments. And I'm going to do some follow-up podcasts just based off some of the comments and some of the messages that have come to me. So I appreciate it. And let me know if there's something we should be speaking about that we haven't spoken about. So until next time, remember to serve God or live trying.